Deleted Session, December 17, 1973. Good evening. Now, we will deal directly with the matter at hand, yet we will also consider it in the light of some other material that may help you put it into perspective. Before we get down to Ruber's particulars, consider the fact that you are presently a part of a species that is specializing in the development of various kinds of consciousness, embarked upon an adventure that sees consciousness not only trying out new directions from your perspective, but also trying to perfect and advance particular attributes. The idea of not perfection now, but excellence is presented to consciousness in many ways and in many guises, and the ideal of excellence serves as an impetus for consciousness, an excellence of pattern. The pattern is used as a standard by the individual consciousness. Members of your species are at various stages, and if you ignore stereotypes, historical connotations, then you can see traces of all of areas of man's so-called past development now in the present, and also examples of future development. Because of your time concepts and beliefs, and examples from the future, even in this exercise, will not appear as clearly as those of the past. There are many still waiting to be sparked, whose lives are, relatively now, unenriched by a mental and psychic environment that you two take for granted. There are those who do not even as yet enjoy their creaturehood, thinking it beneath them, while still being unable to reach through and beyond it. There are satisfactions enjoyed by each of you, therefore, that would be like revelations of the most shattering kind to some others still in your space-time category. Now, I want to speak directly about Ruber's written statement of today. It must be seen in its entirety. It takes for granted abilities that are extraordinary, abilities that are not enjoyed by most. The purpose, a good one, was to protect and develop them in the circumstances in which Ruber found himself, and in line with his other ideas about the nature of reality. The dedication, again, is extraordinary. Taken for granted also is a life relationship with another, and a determination to work out problems within that context. Again, a loyalty and love that many have not yet attained. For all of your problems, each of you take your life relationship and your life journey as your lot, accepting the loyalty of the other without question. Again, many have not been able to attain that kind of relationship even in which to work out problems. The methods that must now be changed. Misguided as they were, and they were misguided, still worked for your benefit in large ways. They could have been far more disastrous. The situation is as you both saw it this evening, Rob noted while reading Jane's list. They said, except that you did not see it in perspective. When new threats arose, Ruber reverted to the old pattern. Rob noted the new threats being the death of my mother, our freedom to travel, now that we have finished personal reality, the absence from home and the interruption of routine, etc., as we talked about tonight. They said reading our book, however, kept some improvements alive, and it was, but a matter of time before he would read again the sessions of work that I gave him. Rob noted, as Jane did today. They said the police for a while fell back into invisibility because he wanted them to. Of course, those particular sessions are highly important. Now, let's return to the basics. The dedication to work. This in itself is good, but his idea of work was what limited him, and what is still limiting him. His life is his work. This includes his particular, unique, extraordinary abilities, but these spring out of his life, and even out of his relationship with you. Great talent requires great spontaneity, not great discipline. Spontaneity knows its own order, and will see that it flows in proper, free, orderly directions. Robert has been trying to tame his spontaneity to make sure it flows only through his work, and in doing so has hampered both his life and his work. He has trained his mind to respond with amazing facility to the moods and messages of the soul. Physically, this meant in previous times that the body was fast, responding instantaneously almost to nuances of feeling that were then translated into both physical mobility and mental and psychic depths of intuition that arose therefrom. He was afraid that the body's spontaneity would lead him away from mental and psychic agility. Since you are physical creatures, the messages of the soul must be translated through the flesh, and to impede the flesh is to dim those communications. He has had to use far more energy to get those messages than is necessary, because he has impeded some of the sections through which information flows. He has cut down on some stimuli and therefore stalled neurological messages. In so doing, he has cut down on the psychic information he could otherwise receive. You cannot shut down or slow down certain methods of communication, or try to black out some neurological frameworks so that other portions will operate more effectively. It does not work that way. While Rupert felt he was doing the right thing, he would put up with almost any inconvenience or make almost any sacrifice. He must understand that no sacrifice is ever required. This particular kind of dilemma arises only when an individual recognizes great ability within themselves and is determined to use it. Protective mechanisms because of faulty beliefs are allowed to predominate, as when an overprotective parent manages, with the best of intentions, to smother a child. The individual feels the presence of great energy and is unsure as to how to use it. Picasso let it go freely. Rupert wonders how much wasted energy went into Picasso's antics. That should have gone into his work. Van Gogh and Cézanne were afraid of their energy, and with all they could have done far more. Picasso's free flow of energy in all areas freed energy for his work, and did not detract from it. He kept his channels to energy open. Therefore, the energy flowed through his work freely, and in a short period of time he could produce a painting that might take years for another as gift to produce, who has spent his talent as a miser. Now both of you have to some extent the false belief that you must protect your abilities against the world and its values and distractions. You therefore place yourselves in a framework of freight, in which your abilities must be cautiously presented, and yourself in an environment against which you must take self-saving methods. The world is thirsty for whatever intimations of joy and immortality it can get. It is highly in need of both of your abilities and will not reject them. Robert sees the two of you against the world. He has taken precautions to protect you and himself. The spontaneity he feared might interfere with his abilities is precisely the key that will release them and him. It is important that you, Joseph, also examine your beliefs honestly in regard to your work and spontaneity and your relationship with the world. How many distractions do you honestly feel are automatically cut out because of Ruber's condition? How much isolation do those symptoms provide you? How do they automatically cut down on ordinary give and take with neighbors and friends that Ruber might otherwise engage in? The sexual impulses are cut down. How much are you willing to put up with them in the middle of an afternoon? Now, for you, this question: what do you still get out of Rupert's symptoms? We know what he still gets out of them. You form your private and joint realities. If Rupert knew that you were receiving no benefits, but only torment from his symptoms, then he would give them up on the spot. Because of his great loyalty to you, and because he would understand that he was hurting you beyond any benefits he gave. This is not to place his condition in your hands at all, but to point out that each of you still find benefits therein, or the joint reality would not exist as it is. All of this involves conscious beliefs, some that you have not officially recognized. I know that your hands must be tired, but I want to get this clearly stated. What purposes are Rubert's symptoms serving for you? In other words, what joint purpose are those symptoms serving? Those purposes involve each of you and your work, and those methods that you think are necessary to direct your energies properly, husband your energy, and protect you from what you think of as a hostile world. You are as afraid of your energies as Rupert is. He is afraid of not directing them into his work. He is convinced that he must protect you and himself from any spontaneity not reflected in work and from the world. You are afraid of releasing your energy into your work, for fear it will carry you beyond all ordinary relationships, simply because your father's creativity seemed to cut him off from his wife and sons, and to lead to isolation. Creative success, not necessarily in terms of money, but creative fulfillment, becomes then a threat in which you see yourself cut off and isolated, while isolation is precisely what you think you must have to fulfill your abilities. Rupert's symptoms help provide the isolation. His continuing love provides, however, the climate, the steady, reassuring climate, the only climate in which you dare to taste that isolation. He fears his spontaneity directly toward you sexually and emotionally would frighten you. So do you. You equate emotionalism with your mother. Rupert equates spontaneity with emotionalism. Therefore, he imagines that his spontaneity will threaten your art. You are not clear here. This is enough for this evening, but Rupert has been afraid that his energy, spontaneously released, could threaten both of your prized abilities. This is not, again, to place his condition at your doorstep by any means. It is to show you that you have a private and a joint reality, and that your purposes merge, and so do your beliefs. I bid you a fond and loaded. Rob said, I guess so. Seth said, good evening. A note. Rupert is heading towards something important with his latest portrait, and as always it leads toward a change of beliefs. Rob said, thank you very much, Seth. Good night.